Welcome to the Media People Podcast, the show where we speak to the people who make up the media industry to learn about where they started, where they are now, and the stories in between. I'm your host, Victor Genova. For more episodes, go to soundcloud.com/mediapeoplepodcast. Views expressed by participants are personal. Blaire Appotive is the founder and owner of Ignite Consulting, a firm specializing in marketing solutions for small businesses and entrepreneurs. But before Blaire ventured out to become her own boss, she was part of the Canadian media agency landscape, juggling omni-channel media campaigns for major clients like Cadbury, Two Oceans Wine, and IKEA. Blaire chats with us about her past life in the media world, walking away from this promising career to pursue an MBA, and why after finishing grad school, she decided to go out on her own. Blaire, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's kick it off by starting right from the beginning. Where are you from?
Okay, sounds good. I'm from Toronto.
And growing up, were you an only child, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one younger sister, 3 years younger than me.
And tell us about your time growing up in Toronto. Were you a musician, an athlete? Kind of like, what would you classify yourself as?
Probably a school nerd. Definitely not a musician or an athlete. Like to read a lot. I did some dance and some gymnastics, so that's sort of athletic, I guess.
Was there anything, so you delved a bit into the arts. Was there anything specifically that kind of inspired you? What would you consider your passion per se?
I guess I did love to dance. I did dance up until I was about 12 or 13, so at the time I was pretty passionate about that.
And outside of dance or your hobbies or your passions, who did you look up to growing up?
I mean, I don't think I had a specific role model, but I guess I always looked up to my parents. It's a cheesy answer, I know, but they were always pretty good role models for me and my sister.
But you also said, too, that you were a big nerd for reading.
Yes.
Sounds like you did a lot of reading. I mean, what kind of books influenced you growing up?
When I was younger, I read a lot of fantasy type books. I was really into time travel. Back to the Future is also my favorite movie. So
Wait. Back to the Future?
Yes.
1, 2, or 3?
Definitely 1.
Really?
Yes.
See, I think 3, that's my favorite Western movie. When people say that's
Really?
no, that is a Western, hands down. Number 2, it got a little too dark, but number 3,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Okay, we're going to get sidetracked.
Okay.
But have you seen that trailer for, it's a Lego video game with Doc Brown from Back to the Future?
No, I have to watch this.
You've got to watch that. Back to the Future is making a comeback. And it's funny because it's 2015
I
now.
know. It's the year that Marty McFly goes back to the future.
But we do not have hoverboards. We do not have flying cars.
We don't have shoes that lace themselves up.
No, but we still have Nike, though. No one has a DeLorean.
That's true.
So you're really big into the fantasy novels and fantasy stories. A really big escape for you, jumping into those books?
I think so. I think it was just kind of fun to read about a completely different world that doesn't exist. So I also really loved all the Narnia books too. I read, I think, all 7 of them, or how many there were of that. So yeah, I was very into books like that. And
it's crazy to think about that a lot of those books that we grew up reading are becoming movies now. Things like The Giver and Narnia. Disney's gone through those. But your time in high school, though, you mentioned that there was a class called Media.
Yes. In grade 11, I took a class called Media, probably because I just thought it would be an easy grade. But once I started taking the class, I was really interested in it, and I thought it was really cool, and thought maybe this could be potentially a career possibility once I took the class. And,
I mean, what did you get out of it? What did they teach you, like at the high school level for media? Because when I was growing up, it was like history, math, gym, repeat.
Yeah. We kind of looked and we did do a section in the class on advertising, ad campaigns. And there was also movies, and we would review movies and look at it for cinematography and different kind of angles, things like that. So I just thought the whole class was really interesting.
And after you wrapped up high school, where did you go from there?
Well, I went to Dalhousie University for my undergrad.
So you were out all the way in Halifax.
Yes.
So you packed up your bags, you left Toronto, and you went to Halifax.
Yes.
Had you ever been there before?
No, it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I'd never been to Halifax before. It looked pretty in a picture, and I thought it looks like a nice place to live.
So you didn't even go and fly over for some sort of, not necessarily an orientation, but to kind of preview the school, walk the grounds for a day or two. You just,
No.
You applied, they said yes, you packed a suitcase, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, I didn't do a campus tour or anything. Once I was accepted, I just decided, okay, I'm going to go out there. And I just had the feeling it would be completely different than Toronto, which is kind of something that I was looking for.
When you landed there in Halifax and you were there living there for the first time, kind of like, what were those initial moments like? Because I've done that too, where you kind of pack a bag and you don't know where you're heading.
Yeah. The first day was the most terrifying. I remember my parents helped me move in, and then they left, and I was just sitting there by myself in my dorm room realizing I moved all the way across the country and I don't know a single person. So I think that first day or first few days were definitely the worst.
But I find when you put yourself in those moments and you get through it, I mean, any other time something difficult comes up in life, you kind of can reflect back on that and said, well, I packed up and moved to a new place. I can tackle anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really good experience for me. I never really ventured very outside of Toronto up until then. I was always grew up here, went to camps close by. So to just move completely by myself to a new place was kind of something I really wanted to do and try it out.
And don't blame me for that. That's something a lot of young people in the GTA do, simply because everything is here.
Yeah.
So your time at Dalhousie, what were you studying?
So I did a Bachelor of Commerce or business degree, and so it was a 4-year program, and I did a specialization in marketing for my 3rd and 4th year. And
correct me if I'm wrong, there was co-op attached to that as well.
Yeah, so it was a co-op program, which kind of one of the reasons that I applied. Thought it would be good to kind of take breaks from school and have work placements.
When you did your work placements, though, because when I was at Brock University, I had friends that were in co-op as well. I found that after the first year, they were kind of misaligned with everyone else. Like they had summer, then they had a semester of school, and then they went right back into co-op for another term, and all their friends were out back in class again. Did you kind of have that as well? Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. At first, I thought the idea of it was really great, but then when I was in it, I was thinking I'm totally off from all my friends' schedules and what they're doing. And I remember one St. Patrick's Day showing up, and the party was basically over because I couldn't show up till after I was done work, and they had started drinking at 12, and that was the end of the night. So it leaves you a little bit, I mean, even though it's beneficial, it leaves you a little academically disoriented, because there were probably times when you were going to school through the summer and all of your friends were back home working at that point. Yeah, there was one summer when I was at Dal that I was there in the summer, and all my friends were back home in Toronto or other places and, you know, having fun or traveling, and I was kind of stuck in school. So, yeah, there were times where it definitely was not the best. But, you know, you graduated with some great experience. So tell us about the companies you did your co-op with and what departments they were. Yeah, sure. I think, one of my favorite placements was when I worked at the Marriott Hotel in Halifax, because it was cool. I kind of worked in all different departments, and accounting, HR, sales and marketing, kind of really understood what it's like to work in a hotel and kind of got exposure to all different types of business. So I really enjoyed that. And then I did one summer where I worked at GE in the commercial real estate division doing finance. And after you graduated and got your Bachelor of Commerce, did you stay in Halifax? Where did you go from there? So after I graduated, I came back to Toronto, and I guess like every other undergraduate graduate, I was unemployed and looking for a job. And I had the idea of going into advertising and marketing type thing. And I met up with a girl who had graduated from Dal, and she was working at a media company, at an agency. So she kind of told me about her experiences. So I thought, okay, maybe this could be a good fit for me. So I started applying for assistant media planner jobs. And where did you land? I was at Cossette. And when you landed at Cossette, as an assistant media planner, what were you doing? Digital, television, radio, everything? Mostly did outdoor, online, and print, but was involved in some radio and TV planning. But
that's kind of typically bought by media buyers, so wasn't as involved in those media.
And Cassette's one of the higher profile agencies in the country, especially if you put them in the silo of Canadian owned and operated media agencies. So a lot of prolific clients there. Who did you have the privilege of working with or working on?
So when I started, they had just won the Cadbury account. This is before Cadbury was bought by Kraft. So they had a need to hire people for that account since they just won it. So that's when I was hired to work on that account specifically.
Anything else outside of Cadbury?
Once I was promoted, I moved over to the IKEA account, and I've worked on some smaller accounts, Two Oceans Wine, Disney Parks, kind of over the course when I was there, but those were kind of the two main accounts I worked on.
I want to focus on IKEA because you did something really unique, and I want you to tell us about it. It was an interesting campaign, and when we spoke about it ahead of time, it looked like it was light years ahead of its time. A lot of the stuff that you did, what was this, like 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Yeah, 2011.
11 years ago. Yeah, that's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
People are doing right now. So tell us about the campaign you did with, is it who's.com, house.com?
It's House.
House, HOUZZ.com.
Correct, yes. So I had heard about the site and kind of looked into it, and it seemed really cool. Basically, people can shop for different, interior design ideas, and they can add it to their idea book. So it's pretty similar of how Pinterest works now with pinning boards, but Pinterest didn't exist at the time. So they hadn't done any advertising or anything like that. And I had spoken to the president, who was out in California, directly saying, hey, I work on this IKEA account, represent IKEA Canada as the national brand, and would it be possible to work together on a campaign? So we worked together and came up with the idea of sponsored photos, which is pretty common now, like you said, but wasn't really done back then.
I mean, some of the stuff sponsored photos, that's probably native advertising, sponsored content at its best. That's kind of like what the buzzword is right now. The way people were like, last year was programmatic, right. This year is native advertising. How did you get in touch with them? Because this was literally, this partner site you worked with was a one-man show. And Here you are from this big media agency representing this multinational retailer and going to them and going, hey, take us seriously. We've got money for you.
Yeah, I actually just went on the site and went onto the contact page, and whatever their info at house, just a general email, emailed him and, since it was a one-person company at the time, it's much bigger now, went directly to him, and, he was pretty excited about it, since I don't think they had really been approached about advertising before, so.
And when you approached the gentleman who was running house.com, or I guess the principal, he was the only one there, you had the privilege of dictating what was going to happen, saying this is how you're going to monetize that. I think that's really impressive, and it's a kind of privilege that not a lot of people have in the industry, to be able to say that to content providers.
Thanks. It was a very cool campaign to work on, because any other media campaign, typically you're not kind of inventing new media or creating something new. You're buying from something that already exists. So I think that's why it's one of the most exciting campaigns that I worked on. And
was there a lot of selling that had to be done internally to your bosses at Cassette on this, as well as the people at IKEA? Because this was a very obscure idea, kind of like a swing for the fences.
Yeah, I think typically when you're trying to convince a client to try something new or completely different, the easiest way to do it is smaller budgets. So, you're not going to have to throw a ton of money at this. It's really small amount. Let's try it out. And so our keyword kind of trying to sell this idea was test. We're going to do a test run. And then if you like it, we'll invest more money later on.
Gotcha. When IKEA comes to mind, I think about, do you remember what they did, the book video from a couple months ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where they were literally, and that's why when I look at this case study, I'm like, they're at the forefront for digital, but then they make that viral video that kind of makes fun of iPads and everything else like that, and going, no, it's the old-fashioned catalog you want to stick with.
Right.
But outside of IKEA, I wanted to ask you, were there any sort of campaigns that, didn't go the way you wanted them to? If you had to do them all over again, you'd do something a little bit different? Yeah,
there was one campaign I worked on. It was when I was kind of, I guess, rising up and, soon to be promoted, and was getting more responsibility and more client interaction. I was kind of the sole lead on one of these campaigns, and my client basically kept delaying, not responding, changing his mind. So originally the campaign that was planned didn't end up going live until about 3 months later, which kind of, when you have a specific calendar to stick to, really isn't ideal. So I think, that wasn't the best campaign I worked on.
And during your time at Cassette, how did the media landscape change, or the asks from clients or the demands put on you? Did you see a lot of shift to one medium, certain things go away?
Yeah, I think there's always a lot of changes in media. Seems to be kind of from month to month, but definitely from the time that I was there was a lot of changes in terms of, obviously digital. I think kind of when I started, digital was kind of an afterthought. It was kind of, let's chuck a certain small amount of money of the budget to digital campaigns. And then sort of as time went on, it was more integrated with everything. It was, we need a campaign, and how are we going to incorporate digital into this campaign? So it definitely got bigger budgets and kind of got more importance as time went on.
I'm happy to hear people are starting to understand that digital is catching on. I was, just now. When I worked for integrated companies, some of the stuff that I actually had, this is a true story. Someone once asked me, I was working at the CBC, and one TV rep asked me if I thought YouTube was going to catch on.
Oh, wow.
It had already been bought by Google at this point. It wasn't niche. So, but anyways, you actually made a really dramatic shift in your career. You decided to quit Cassette, and then what did you do next?
So I went back to school, and I went for my MBA.
And where did you do your MBA?
At York University, or Schulich School of Business.
And we've had other people who have been on the show who have left work full-time to go pursue a master's. I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked them.
Sure.
Did people think you were crazy for quitting your job and moving on, going back to school?
Yeah, there was definitely a fair amount of comments, especially when you start to get more responsibility in advertising, and you're promoted and you're kind of on track for this career, to kind of stop that and to go back to school, people kind of think, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So yeah, I definitely got some comments about that.
Especially too, when they look at it from a dollars and cents perspective. You're making money,
yeah.
Then you're going to quit and spend money. And an MBA tuition, that's a pretty tall order as well. So they were probably looking at you going, no, what are you doing? You're on the way up here. But tell us a bit about your time at Schulich when you're doing your MBA. How did that compare back to your undergraduate days at Dalhousie?
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't as fun. let me just say that. It's a lot more about the learning and the work and the classes. There's a lot less socialization, and I think that's also, it's so different than undergrad because everybody's kind of in different stages of their lives. There's a lot of people that go and do a master's after, they're married and have kids, and they don't really have time to, go to bars after class and socialize and things like that.
And I'm assuming you moving back from Halifax and in the GTA, you commuted to Schulich.
Yeah, I commuted to Schulich.
So that was did that change the dynamic a little bit? Whereas at Dalhousie, you were living on campus or around campus, and it wasn't necessarily a stone throw away. You had to go there. Yeah,
it's completely different kind of going to a commuter school versus going to a school where everyone kind of lives around campus and everyone kind of hangs out. And especially York being out in the middle of nowhere, people don't really hang out there. They go to school, they take their classes, and then they go home. So
they're getting a subway stop, so It's not completely in the middle of nowhere just yet.
That was supposed to be this year, I think.
I know, it's been pushed back like a year and a half. So were there any classes that resonated with you specifically?
Yeah, I ended up taking a course called Entrepreneurship and New Firm Creation, and I just took it because I thought it would be fun, and it's when I was in my summer semester, and I think that's the class that had the biggest impact on me for sure.
And that was the class you said was Larry Ginsberg.
Yes.
And so it changed you, and it put you, would you say, onto the path where you are now?
Yeah, I'd say definitely. I kind of went into the class just thinking it would be fun, and I heard there was a project where you got to, write a business plan and create a product or service, and that was really different than the other classes. But by the end of it, I thought wait, this seems pretty good. I mean, this seems like a good fit for me that I could potentially do as a career. So yeah, it was pretty life-changing, I guess you could say.
So you found that they focused a lot on giving you the confidence to go out there rather than just the technical expertise to start your own company, but the confidence to actually do that.
Yeah, I think the way that he taught the class was really inspirational because he was all about anybody can be an entrepreneur, and as long as you find an opportunity or you solve a problem or find a gap in the market, kind of just go for it and don't look back type thing. Okay,
so that would you say that that's led us to where you are now in your career?
Yeah, I mean, he always talked about there's opportunities kind of everywhere you look. So I think I was just kind of looking out for the right opportunity. And I kind of had that in the back of my mind that if I found something that felt right, I would pursue it as a business.
And that brings us to where you are now, yes. Ignite Consulting. Before we go any further, just because I want people to have the opportunity to put your website up while they're listening to this, where can they find your firm?
So just go to igniteconsulting.ca.
Okay. And Ignite, let's talk first about the idea. You were just saying a couple of moments ago that if you found the right idea that pushed you into entrepreneurship, what was that idea that brought you to Ignite?
So the idea I had basically was having worked for, larger agencies and larger clients, large businesses and corporations kind of always get serviced in marketing and people are always going after them. But what I found was that I had a lot of different friends or people that I knew who started their own businesses or they were entrepreneurs or had small businesses, and they didn't really have anywhere to go in terms of getting help in marketing. They couldn't really afford the large agency fees, and they didn't necessarily have the expertise to do it on their own.
Okay, so you laid the foundation for that. What made you come up with the name Ignite or choose that for the company?
So the idea behind Ignite was like growth. So I can help you ignite your business. As cheesy as that might sound.
No, that's not cheesy. Look, I'd say if you can explain why you went with the name, that's good enough. Yeah. Because at least you know why. You're not just doing it for show. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about the sales aspect of your agency because you've got to go out and hunt for clients.
Yes.
I'm a media sales rep, and even though we can be a nuisance in our industry, there's an apparatus set up for us. People are there, as you know, anticipating us. They've got briefs, they've got things like that. But you, on the other hand, might not necessarily have the benefit of that apparatus. So how do you go about finding those new clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a whole different area, especially because in my career, I'd never done any types of sales work at all before. So you kind of have to try all different ways in order to get clients. So whether it's networking events, I've found social media to be pretty amazing in terms of getting the word out there. And just kind of old-fashioned, call people and meet with them in person.
Perfect. You mentioned social media. Going to assume LinkedIn has probably been the most valuable conduit for it.
Yes.
Yep. Social selling really is all the rage. So how long have you been principal at Ignite or had your own company?
Well, kind of had the idea, the beginning of last summer and officially launched, I'd say, beginning of September 2014.
Okay. So you've been at it now, would you say, for about 8 or 9 months?
Yeah.
Do you think you could ever go back working for someone else after being your own boss?
I don't think so. I just find that it's pretty great to kind of have complete creative control and work with clients directly. So I really enjoy it, and it would be difficult to go back for sure.
This is perfect. Okay, Blaire, we're going to close with the same question I give to everyone else. If you weren't in media, what would you be doing, or marketing? What would you be doing and why?
It's a good question. I have a friend who does research at U of T, and she's pretty amazing. She tries to find cures for diseases and works with lab rats. And while that completely disgusts me and I hate science, I think that's a really beneficial job for the world. So if I enjoyed science, I think I'd want to be doing something like that.
Awesome. This has been great. Blaire, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's show. For more episodes, go to soundcloud.com/mediapeoplepodcast and follow me on Twitter @VicGenova.